All right, I want to talk about mental health counseling. More specifically, the skill and art and craft of improvisation as it relates to the therapeutic context with client and counselor. So, I believe that improvisation is probably one of the most underrated yet powerful skills that counselors can develop in themselves. And it's very experiential and embodied and relational. It's not really something you can totally learn theoretically or conceptually. It has to be something that you expose yourself to, and you have to be able to continue to practice to develop that disciplined spontaneity, that creative resourcefulness with integrity. And so I think when people have this idea of improvisation as being kind of randomness or chaos, and that can't be further from the truth. True improvisation, just like a comedian or a jazz musician, true improvisation is very much a balance of structure and freedom, of chaos and order, of presence and authority. A jazz musician, for example, when they're going to play a solo, they're not just playing random chaotic notes. To the untrained ear, it may seem random, but the more you study and you start to understand the theory of music and the underlying ways in which melody and harmony come together, you start to see, and you also take into consideration the musician's individual style and context. You start to see the bigger picture. You start to see the underlying logic or the magic, if you will, in their playing. And it starts to take on a new sense of meaning and an ability to understand it. So I think the same thing applies to mental health counseling. We can learn all of these different theories and clinical techniques and concepts and frameworks and everything, but ultimately when we are sitting face to face across from a client and they are unfolding their story, and we are forced into a mode of improvisation, if for no other reason than we just simply can't account for all of the possibilities that we may encounter within the therapeutic relationship. And so when it comes to developing this improvisational sensibility, I think there are a few good resources. I mentioned that it's something you have to experiment with, expose yourself to, practice with. There's a certain mindset shift of like kind of getting over your anxiety about having to be perfect, having to know exactly what to do, having to say everything right. And maybe there's some fear about, well, I don't want to mess up, and so I need I need the sheet music, so to speak. I can't improvise. I need some written out script to follow. And that's precisely the type of mindset that I believe takes counselors out of the moment. It puts us in a more inauthentic position. And perhaps more importantly, it actually creates a lot of blind spots to a whole wealth of therapeutic opportunity that becomes open to us when we are truly present and truly engaged in a genuine encounter with another human being. And so, with all of that said, there are a few resources that I want to point you guys to if you're interested in learning more. Uh, the first one is Therapeutic Improvisation by Michael Alcier. And this book is really great. It dives into a lot of great concepts, but the main sort of dynamism in here is balancing therapeutic presence with therapeutic authority. So, being able to be present in the moment with a client, but also balancing our clinical knowledge and authority and expertise, and being able to hold both of those in balance without being leaning too much in one way or the other, and recognizing that each client is going to require a different mixture of presence and authority. For example, young adults who might not have the emotional experience, when it comes to expressing, dealing, and noticing emotions, they may require a little bit more authority, a little bit more orientation. Whereas perhaps a different client may really respond well to and need clinically a more explorative, curious, and more of a presence approach. And so the skill of improving is knowing where to lean for which moment. And as he talks about in the book, there are a variety of moments where it switches and we have to be really dynamic and creative and resourceful in our approach. Another book that I don't have on me, I think it's at my office, is called Improvisational Therapy by Bradford Keeney. That is a great book on a different approach to thinking about clinical theory, evidence-based practice, what we should do as counselors. And Bradford Keeney suggests that we kind of have to develop our own therapeutic position and therapeutic techniques and approach and craft. We can't simply rely on the writings of theorists of the past or even the present because, well, they're not us, number one, but also no theory is going to be comprehensive enough to truly account for all of the clinical situations that we as counselors find ourselves in. And so Bradford Keeney really emphasizes the fact of like, well, first off, we have to come to understand who we are, our personality, our knowledge, our expertise, our identity, our perspectives on life. And we have to actually craft a therapeutic approach based on our who we are, our character, and not try to emulate somebody else. Secondly, he reframes theoretical orientation and conceptual theories as different songs and different motifs that we can riff on and use and modify, edit, throw away when we need to. And so it's a really cool mindset shift about, I guess what I would call it is a more perennial view of counseling theories and psychological theories. Being able to extract the or separate the wheat from the chaff, being able to chew on the meat and spit out the bones. And what I mean by that is recognizing what is the useful aspect of each theory. Jungian theory, psychodynamic, CBT, REBT, narrative, existential. All of these approaches tug on a certain thread of existence and reality that we as counselors can use as therapeutic tools and resources to work with the client with. And so Therapeutic Improvisation is a great book by Bradford Keeney. I highly recommend it. Another one is Rollo May, The Art of Counseling. And this is a great book. I actually just recently finished reading it. And Rollo May talks about the role of creativity and freedom and responsibility as it relates to personality. And he talked a lot about how the different aspects of counseling and how counselors can help clients tap into, well, and become aware of the tensions in their personality that are causing them problems with living, and helping guide and facilitate creative adjustments to their personality so that they can unlock their own freedom and their own responsibility and their own creativity and to become who they truly are meant to be. And so The Art of Counseling by Rollo May is a great book. Another book that I wanted to bring to your attention is Creativity and Conformity by Clark Mustakis. And this is a great Mustakis is a psychologist, and I believe he is a therapist because he references quite a bit of different therapeutic stories throughout. But he talks about the different dimensions of a creative life, and he really highlights the tension that we all feel about conformity versus being our unique individual self. And I think this book is really helpful if you're trying to tap into and really own who you are as a counselor. I think this is a really good book for working through some of the self-doubt, some of the external and internal resistances we have and we experience to our own creativity. Um, it's a great book. I think it fits into this idea of improving, and it's a funny thing in the age of certainty and statistics and research and algorithms. The idea of improvising your work with clients almost seems sort of rebellious or counterintuitive or very scary to some people. And it doesn't have to be if you modify your mindset, but also practice and learn how to prepare yourself to be fully present and responsive. I also could sort of think of the game of tennis. I mean, when you are a tennis player, you spend a lot of time like practicing your strokes and your serves and all the different shots you may take. And then when it comes to match time, well, now you have to turn to an improvised mindset, and all of those conscious skills that you worked at actively have to kind of seep down into more of a subconscious level where you can be fully present to the opponent who you've likely never played before and respond to the moment, bringing out different skills and different expressions as they are needed in the here and now. I think Gestalt therapy lends itself to a lot of helpful principles and ideas when it comes to improving this work of counseling. And so, with all that being said, I'm curious of what you guys think. For me, it's been really liberating adopting this more creative, improvisational approach. And I feel quite a relief. And from the feedback I've been getting from my colleagues and my clients, I think they can also sense this certain freedom, this certain presence and authentic encountership um, with me. And I wonder if this is something to do with that. Now, this isn't to say we should just like throw out all the different theories and frameworks that researchers have tried to develop over the years. But it's not about throwing them away and disregarding them, but it's also not about absorbing them as doctrine, as biblical truths, if you will. It's more about keeping them in the realm of, well, these are different resources and tools. And the real skill and the real finesse is learning what the client is needing and how to creatively bring in these resources to help move them to a more flourishing state and help them change their behaviors, change their cognitions, change their personality tensions in a way that unlocks and liberates them from whatever problems that they come to us with. And so this is definitely something I want to keep talking more about, and I might put out some more videos about my sort of take on improvisational counseling. And so if that is is that if that is of an interest to you guys, I would love for you to smash the like button, drop a comment, let me know what you think. Um, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.